They fired in the dark. We fired with precision. While the Japanese destroyers hurled shells blindly into the night, our radar painted every enemy ship like daylight on a green screen. I watched those glowing blips creep closer through the blackness of Surigao Strait, knowing that in minutes American technology would deliver a shot the Imperial Navy would never forget. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, and I served as fire control officer aboard the heavy cruiser USS Louisville during the Battle of Surigao Strait on October 25, 1944. What I witnessed that night changed naval warfare forever. For the first time in history, an entire battle fleet would fight and win using nothing but electronic eyes to see the enemy. The Japanese came expecting a traditional night engagement. Instead, they sailed into a technological ambush that would demonstrate American industrial might and scientific superiority in the most dramatic way possible. The stage was set 3 days earlier when Admiral Jesse Oldendorf received word that a Japanese southern force was steaming toward Lake Gulf. Two battleship groups under Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura and Rear Admiral Kyohei Shima planned to punch through Surigao Strait and attack our amphibious forces at dawn. Intelligence indicated the enemy force included battleships Yamashiro and Fuso, 3 cruisers, and 8 destroyers, a formidable fleet by any measure. But Admiral Oldendorf had something the Japanese didn't expect: a battle line of 6 battleships, 8 cruisers, and dozens of destroyers, all equipped with the most advanced radar fire control systems ever deployed. The USS Louisville, our ship, carried the revolutionary Mark 8 fire control radar that could track targets with pinpoint accuracy in total darkness. While the enemy would rely on primitive optical rangefinders and star shells for illumination, we possessed electronic vision that turned night into day. I remember standing in the Combat Information Center as we took our position in the battle line. The CIC hummed with electronic equipment, oscilloscopes, plotting boards, and the hypnotic sweep of radar screens painting the tactical picture in green light. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, our senior radar operator, had 20 years of Navy experience, but he'd never seen anything like this. Contacts bearing 270, range 32,000 yards, Rodriguez called out, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what we were witnessing. Count shows multiple large vessels in column formation. Captain Harold Morrison, no relation despite the shared name, studied the radar plot with intense concentration. Our Mark 8 system could track individual ships at ranges the enemy couldn't even dream of engaging. All stations, this is the captain. We have electronic visual of the Japanese Southern Force. They're coming right into our parlor. The tactical situation was perfect. Admiral Oldendorf had positioned our forces in a classic crossing the T formation across the mouth of Surigao Strait. The narrow waters would force the Japanese into a single column where our concentrated firepower could devastate them ship by ship. More importantly, our radar advantage meant we would open fire long before they even knew we were there. At 0300 hours, the first phase began. PT boats from Squadron 3 launched torpedo attacks against the lead Japanese destroyers. Through our radar, we watched the small craft dart in and out like angry hornets, their torpedo explosions lighting up the night sky. The battleship Fuso took multiple hits and began falling behind the main formation. Already mortally wounded. Plot shows enemy formation breaking up, I reported to Captain Morrison. Lead elements continuing north, but several contacts have stopped or are moving erratically. The captain nodded grimly. The PT boys have done their job. Now it's our turn. At 0351 hours, Admiral Oldendorf gave the order every man in the battle line had been waiting for: open fire. What happened next demonstrated the revolutionary power of radar-directed naval gunnery. While the Japanese strained their eyes searching for muzzle flashes in the darkness, our Mark 8 systems locked onto their ships with mechanical precision. The USS West Virginia's 16-inch guns spoke first, followed by the thunderous salvos of 5 more battleships. But it was the cruisers like Louisville that provided the sustained, accurate fire that would devastate the enemy formation. Battery released, I called out as our 8-inch guns began their deadly work. The Mark 8 radar fed constant range and bearing data to our gun directors. automatically calculating firing solutions faster and more accurately than any human crew could manage. Our first salvo was on target, something that would have been impossible in previous night engagements. Through the darkness, orange flames erupted from the Japanese column as our shells found their marks. The radar screen showed enemy ships slowing, stopping, or turning away in confusion. They were firing back, but their shots fell wide, aimed at gun flashes they could barely see, while our radar kept perfect track of every movement they made. Chief Rodriguez provided a running commentary of the electronic battle unfolding on his scope. Leading destroyer taking multiple hits, she's dead in the water. Second destroyer turning to port, correction, she's listing heavily. Battleship contact still making way, but appears to be on fire. The Japanese commander, Admiral Nishimura, showed incredible courage in the face of this technological onslaught. His flagship, the battleship Yamashiro, continued north directly into our concentrated fire. But courage couldn't overcome the fundamental advantage our radar systems provided. While Yamashiro's gunners fired desperately at shadows, our computers calculated the exact trajectory needed to put shells into her vitals. At 0419 hours, we achieved what naval historians would later call the most one-sided gunnery engagement in battleship history. The Yamashiro, pounded by accurate fire from multiple ships, exploded in a massive fireball that lit up the entire strait. Admiral Nishimura went down with his ship, maintaining the warrior code of the Imperial Navy even as American technology overwhelmed his force. Battleship contact has disappeared from scope, Rodriguez reported with quiet satisfaction. Explosion was visible even from here, but the night wasn't over. At 0430 hours, our radar detected a second Japanese force approaching from the south. Admiral Shima's cruiser group had arrived to find the strait filled with burning wrecks and oil slicks. Unlike Nishimura, Shima quickly recognized the hopelessness of the situation and ordered a withdrawal after his flagship collided with one of the burning hulks from the first attack. The technological superiority we demonstrated that night went beyond simple radar detection. Our Mark 8 systems integrated with analog computers that automatically calculated firing solutions, compensating for ship movement, wind, and ballistics in real time. While Japanese gunners manually adjusted their aim based on visual observation off shell splashes, our weapons fired with machine-like precision guided by electronic brains. Lieutenant Bobby Chen, our gunnery officer, had trained extensively with the new systems at Mare Island before deployment. It's like having Superman's vision, he told me as we watched our guns methodically destroy a Japanese cruiser. We can see them clear as day while they're shooting blind. The impact on enemy morale was devastating. Japanese survivors later reported complete confusion and terror at facing an enemy who could hit them repeatedly while remaining invisible in the darkness. Some described the experience as fighting ghosts. Shells appeared from nowhere with deadly accuracy while their own return fire seemed to vanish into empty ocean. By 0500 hours, the Battle of Surigao Strait was effectively over. Of the Japanese Southern Forces' 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, and 8 destroyers, only 1 destroyer and 1 cruiser escaped serious damage. The battleships Yamashiro and Fuso were sunk, along with 3 destroyers. American casualties were minimal, 39 men killed and 114 wounded across the entire battle force, most from PT boat actions rather than the main engagement. But the real victory was technological. We had demonstrated that radar fire control could revolutionize naval warfare, making traditional night fighting tactics obsolete overnight. The Japanese Navy, built around superior optics and night fighting skills, found itself suddenly outclassed by American electronics and industrial capability. As dawn broke over Surigao Strait, I climbed to the bridge to survey the battlefield. The narrow waters were littered with debris, oil slicks, and the occasional survivor clinging to wreckage. The smell of cordite and burning fuel oil hung heavy in the tropical air. Captain Morrison stood silently at the rail, studying the destruction through binoculars. "Hell of a thing, Jack," he said quietly. "We just fought an entire battle without ever seeing the enemy with our own eyes." The implications were staggering. For centuries, naval combat had been a matter of seamanship, courage, and the ability to spot enemy ships on the horizon. Now, radar had made visual contact almost irrelevant. The side with better electronics would win, regardless of traditional naval skills. Our radar operators had tracked and engaged targets at ranges of 15 miles or more, 3 times farther than the most powerful optical rangefinders could operate effectively. The Mark 8 system's automatic tracking meant our guns stayed locked onto targets even when enemy ships maneuvered frantically to escape. Most remarkably, our accuracy actually improved throughout the engagement as the computers refined their calculations with each salvo. Chief Rodriguez summed up the technological revolution we had witnessed. 20 years I've been in the Navy, and I never thought I'd see the day when we could shoot accurately at ships we couldn't even see. Those Japs came expecting a fair fight, but we brought a computer to a gunfight. The Japanese had built their Pacific strategy around superior night fighting capabilities developed through intensive training and advanced optical equipment. Their officers prided themselves on split-second maneuvering and precise gunnery in complete darkness. But all that skill became worthless when facing an enemy who could see perfectly in any conditions. Admiral Shima's retreat probably saved his remaining ships from complete annihilation. His report to Imperial Navy headquarters painted a grim picture of American technological capabilities. For the first time, Japanese naval commanders realized they faced not just superior numbers, but revolutionary new weapons that made their entire tactical doctrine obsolete. The broader strategic impact was equally significant. The destruction of the Southern Force eliminated the last serious threat to our late landings and marked the beginning of the end for Japanese naval power in the Philippines. More importantly, it demonstrated American industrial and scientific supremacy in the most visible way possible. Back in the CIC, our radar screens continued their hypnotic sweep, painting the empty strait in green light. The electronic equipment that had given us such a decisive advantage hummed quietly, ready for the next engagement. Lieutenant Chen was already analyzing the fire control data, calculating hit percentages and plotting accuracy trends. 93% of our salvos were on target, he reported with obvious pride. In daylight conditions, we rarely do better than 70%. The radar fire control system performed flawlessly. That statistic captured the magnitude of our technological achievement. Traditional naval gunnery, even under ideal conditions, was an imprecise art that relied heavily on human judgment and experience. Our electronic systems had achieved mechanical precision that exceeded human capabilities, turning naval combat into something approaching an exact science. The psychological impact on Japanese survivors was profound. Petty Officer Tanaka, rescued from a sinking destroyer, later described the engagement to intelligence officers. The American ships were invisible demons. Their shells fell like rain from the darkness, while our shots disappeared into emptiness. We had no chance. It was like fighting the gods themselves. Such reactions revealed how completely our radar systems had overturned traditional naval warfare. The Japanese entered Surigao Strait confident in their night fighting superiority, only to discover that their primary tactical advantage had been eliminated by American technology. The psychological shock was as devastating as the physical destruction. As we steamed north to rejoin the main fleet, I reflected on what we had accomplished. The Battle of Surigao Strait would be remembered as the last great engagement between battleships, but more importantly, it marked the dawn of electronic warfare. Radar had transformed naval combat as dramatically as gunpowder had revolutionized land battles centuries earlier. The men who operated our radar and fire control systems deserved recognition equal to any traditional naval hero. Chief Rodriguez and his operators had guided our shells to target with deadly precision while remaining invisible to the enemy. Their electronic vigilance had been as crucial as any lookout's sharp eyes in previous naval battles. Captain Morrison called the crew to battle stations one final time as we cleared the strait. "Men of Louisville," his voice echoed through the ship's speakers, "you have participated in a historic victory. Not just because we defeated a powerful enemy force, but because we proved that American technology and American industrial might can overcome any challenge. The radar systems that guided our guns tonight represent the future of naval warfare. The future had indeed arrived at Surigao Strait. Within months, radar-directed gunnery would be standard throughout the Pacific Fleet. The electronic advantage we demonstrated would contribute to victory after victory as American forces closed in on Japan itself. But it began here, in the narrow waters between Leyte and Mindanao, when electronic eyes pierced the darkness and American technology shocked the Imperial Navy into defeat. Looking back from the perspective of decades, the Battle of Surigao Strait stands as a perfect example of how technological superiority can transform military conflict. The Japanese brought skill, courage, and fighting spirit to the engagement. But they faced an enemy armed with radar systems that made traditional naval tactics obsolete overnight. The revolution we witnessed extended far beyond naval warfare. The same electronic principles that guided our guns would eventually transform air combat, missile defense, and space exploration. The computers that calculated our firing solutions were primitive ancestors of the digital systems that would reshape human civilization. But on that October night in 1944, we were simply sailors doing our duty with the best equipment our nation could provide. The radar operators, fire control technicians, and gun crews who achieved such devastating accuracy were ordinary Americans wielding extraordinary tools. Their professional skill, combined with revolutionary technology, delivered a victory that shocked the world and hastened the end of the Pacific War. Chief Rodriguez captured the essence of our achievement as we secured from battle stations. We showed them what American science can do. They came looking for a fight, but we brought them a demonstration of the future. The future had arrived with a vengeance in the water-soft Surigao Strait. American radar technology had not only won a crucial battle, it had fundamentally changed the nature of naval warfare itself. The electronic eyes that pierced the darkness that night would guide Allied forces to final victory in the Pacific, proving that American industrial and scientific capabilities were as decisive as courage and seamanship in determining the outcome of war. As the sun rose over the Philippines on October 25, 1944, it illuminated not just another American victory, but the dawn of the electronic age in military affairs. The Battle of Surigao Strait would be remembered as the moment when technology truly began to dominate the battlefield, and American innovation led the way into a new era of warfare. The men who fought that night, both the radar operators in their electronic spaces and the gunners at their weapons, had participated in a revolution as significant as any in military history. They had demonstrated that American technology, American training, and American determination could overcome any enemy, no matter how skilled or courageous. The shock waves from their victory would ripple across the Pacific and around the world, announcing that a new age of warfare had begun. In the years that followed, military historians would study the Battle of Surigao Strait as the perfect example of how technological innovation can provide decisive military advantage. The radar systems that gave us such complete superiority were products of American universities, American industry, and American scientific research. They represented the mobilization of an entire nation's intellectual and industrial resources for victory in the greatest conflict in human history. The Japanese forces that entered Surigao Strait that night were among the most experienced and capable naval units in the Imperial Navy. Their defeat was not due to lack of skill or courage, but to the overwhelming technological superiority of American radar and fire control systems. In demonstrating that superiority so dramatically, we proved that the United States possessed not just the world's largest navy, but its most advanced one as well. The electronic revolution that began at Surigao Strait would ultimately transform not just military affairs, but human civilization itself. The same principles of radar detection and electronic computation that guided our guns that night would eventually lead to satellite communications, computer networks, and the digital age. In a very real sense, the modern world began to emerge from the green glow of radar screens in the Combat Information Center of American warships. But for those of us who were there, the Battle of Surigao Strait will always be remembered as the night American technology shocked the world and changed naval warfare forever. We fired with precision while they fired in the dark, and in doing so, we wrote a new chapter in the history of human conflict, one where scientific knowledge and industrial capability would prove as important as traditional military virtues in determining victory or defeat. The legacy of that night extends far beyond the specific tactical victory we achieved. It demonstrated the decisive importance of technological superiority in modern warfare and showcased the American capacity for innovation under pressure. The radar systems that gave us such a complete advantage were developed, manufactured, and deployed in less than 3 years, a remarkable achievement that reflected the mobilization of American scientific and industrial resources on an unprecedented scale. As I concluded my service aboard USS Louisville and returned to civilian life, I carried with me the memory of that extraordinary night when American technology transformed naval warfare. The men who designed, built, and operated our radar systems had given us an advantage as decisive as any in military history. Their achievement reminded the world that American innovation, combined with American determination, could overcome any challenge. The Battle of Surigao Strait stands as lasting proof that in the modern age, victory belongs to the nation that can best harness science and technology for military purposes. On that dark night in October 1944, American radar showed the world the future of warfare, and that future belonged to us.